Welcome to Collecting Consciousness, where we aim to capture the ever-expanding and evolving conscious creations that originate from the minds of fellow podcasters, strangers, dear friends, and loved ones.
In this podcast, we will expand on our inner wisdom and a coming home to self. From our conscious minds to yours, we welcome you to the Collecting Consciousness.
So, welcome back to another episode of Collecting Consciousness. Today, this is Bethany, that's Courtney, and we love to get started with a little breath work to settle our nervous systems and settle into the space. And then Courtney will give us a little prayer to invoke intention into this episode. And if you are able to, please join us for this. So if you can find somewhere comfy to sit down, or if you're sitting, maybe you want to lie down. If you're driving, maybe you join us for the breath work. And if it's available to you, I invite you to gently close your eyes at this time, bringing your attention inward, bringing the attention into the inner landscape. Within this inner landscape, taking notice of your breath. Just noticing its rate, its depth, the pattern. And as you notice your breath, I invite you to make no judgments, no changes, just allowing it to be what it is. Now bringing our awareness to our bodies, feeling if there's any tension, maybe behind the eyes, at the jawline, maybe on the shoulders. Just allowing that tension to be there with loving awareness. And as I count down from 3, I want to invite you to exhale completely out the mouth. 3, 2, 1, exhale. Allowing the breath to completely leave the body. At the bottom of the exhale, pausing for 2, 1. Inhaling, gently allowing the breath to find its way back into the body. Expanding the belly, expanding the lungs, the rib cage. Allowing this beautiful fresh breath to fill you up completely. And when you get to the top, pausing for 1, 2, exhaling, maybe allowing a gentle sigh. At the bottom of this exhale, pausing for 2, 1, inhaling, allowing the breath to find its way all the way into your belly, expanding the belly, then filling up the rib cage, expanding the lungs. And when you get to the top of this breath, pausing for 2, 1, exhaling. Pausing at the bottom of the exhale for 1, 2, inhaling completely. Take the deepest breath that you've taken today. Allowing this breath to fill your lung cavity all the way. And when you get to the top, pausing for at least a count of 2, 2, 1. Maybe holding it for a moment longer, just basking in the stillness within your body. And then exhaling gently, allowing the breath to return to its natural rhythm. allowing the breath to just breathe you in this moment. And just taking a notice of what has shifted in this landscape. Has the tension dissipated where it once was? Has your breath shifted in its rate and its depth? And I want to invite you today to place one hand on the heart, maybe followed by the other, as we invite Courtney in to give us a prayer of intention for this episode.
Thank you, Bethany. I call in my higher self. I call to walk with the higher self. I am the higher self. These are intentions that allow you to step into your highest of alignment. We all can live in the highest of alignment if that's what we choose. To become consciously aware of all frequencies. I am with the higher self. Higher self, lead me in this journey. Send me the nudges. Send me the pings. Send me the frequency to tap in so that I can live closest to spirit, closest to God, closest to whatever the word is for something bigger than you and I. Higher selves, join us as we lead into this episode. We are divinely led, divinely guided, divinely protected, and divinely supported. Channel the wisdom that is most bountiful. Channel the wisdom that will lead us to the highest of frequency. Welcome into the collecting consciousness. We welcome in a frequency that is connected to source. Perhaps you feel bliss within your body. Perhaps you feel a calming energy. Allow yourself to feel whatever it is that you intend to feel, or whatever is presenting itself. Energy never lies. Energy just is. So can you see yourself? Can you feel yourself? Can you know yourself? Can you hear yourself? The higher self. Welcome into collecting consciousness. Allow yourself to wiggle your toes, wiggle your feet, feel the heart rate, feel the skin on the body. Maybe you feel a heightened sensation. The ears may be attuned. The sight may be seeing imagery or colors. Or maybe there's this deep inner knowing within yourself, or feeling, sorts of feelings that are giving you messages. Tap in. Be heightened to your energetic body. And I want you to set an intention for yourself. Intentions lead you on your journey. They're goal-oriented. They help you find the way to our desires, to our prayers. So set the intention, whatever it is that fills your mind and heart, and let it melt into your body. And welcome back to another episode. And this prayer of intention is leading us to what this episode is all about. the higher self, the intuition. We're going to be diving in on personal experiences of how the higher self shows up for us, of how our intuition leads us to the higher self. So welcome, welcome, welcome. What's up, Biff Star?
Hey. That was yummy. I like that.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
A little prayer, a little intention to connect us to the higher self.
And I was. I
Yeah.
like,
Yes.
so it's really funny, like in preparation for this episode, I was like, marinating on like, higher self intuition. I'm like, man, I like feel like I kind of get what the intuition's about, but I was like, I really haven't sat with like what is the higher self about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really just toss it out there, higher self, being guided by the higher self, but really like what is it? Like I've had experiences with Faith, the healer, like bringing my higher self from outside of me into me, like, but like that was like the last time I really had like a real connection, like with like that way with my higher self.
Right.
I did some researching, and I was like, and I did watch the video and that I found, and I loved how she explained it. Like it's like a database of consciousness, and I like just and then so like I was like sitting here in your prayer. This is like where this is coming from. I was sitting in your prayer, and I was just like connecting with the higher self, and I was just receiving like the message. And like more words, because sometimes I'm more clairvoyant of like, this is exactly what you need to be doing. Like you're collecting consciousness. This is what the higher self wants. Like it was like happy. It was like, this is what we want. Like we want more consciousness. Like we want more discussion. We want more experiences. Like that's what it's about. It's about.
I love that.
Yeah, it was so cool. I was like, wow. Cool.
And it's fun too, because like this is what we, like you said, this is what we are. We are collecting consciousness. Like there's so many different conscious minds, and it's all about like, it's like those things that click for you, like when something resonates, you're like, oh, I'm meant to hear this consciousness. So it's like by us having these interviews, by us tapping in, we're gathering new information, and then boom, that's getting it imprinted into the body, and it's resonating. And it's like, these are the things you're meant to hear. So it's just like, it's fun to be able to hear all the wisdom that comes. Everybody has wisdom. You can sit and hear wisdom from any soul. There's some sort of consciousness that is bringing forward that you can learn from. So with that little plug, guys, if you feel like you have a message that you want to get out there, reach out to us, because we want to have conversations with people. We want to expand the consciousness. We want to share the wisdom. That's what it's all about. And like the database, like, talking about the database, that's interesting, because it's like, for me, it's like, okay, it is the higher self is the highest connection to source, to God, to whatever the wordage, something bigger than you and I. That's what I like to say. And for an example, it's like, I like to connect to the higher self all the time. Like I'm always doing little prayers in my mind, connecting me to my highest. Like I have a little note on my door that's like, lead me to the path of highest alignment. I connect to my higher self. Like I'm connected to my higher self. It's the simple intention. But when we were having fun this weekend doing our little content videos and stuff, when we did our little breakthrough commercial, that was the higher self. Like I knew in that moment I was my higher self. I was tapped in to what the higher self, to my higher self. I was her, she was me. Looking around, like how free flowing it felt, how organically channeling it came out. Looking around, and like another little key indicator is when you're in your higher self is when you are in like this blissful state, when you are feeling so grounded within the body, when the mind is silent, like when you are just feeling like this elevation. That is the higher self, in my opinion. So as we were doing our prayer and how it just came through in that one take, it was like I looked around and the sun was peering through the woods. The trees were all breezing. We were surrounded by nature. The words just flowed. And it's interesting because I said, we did like a little, just like a little talking of what we wanted to do, but then we tapped in. But before we did the fully tapped in, I said, we can do 2 takes if we need to. And like, when we went in for that second take, we didn't need it.
No, it was garbled. Yeah.
But look at that. And so like tapping into intuition, higher self, my intuition knew
yeah,
that there was going to be 2 takes, but if we needed it, and then guess what? And then in that moment, I also made like, we'll post a little bloopers because it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Oh, that was the other thing I had.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Because it's like when I said, I was like, again, if we need to. And then as you were starting it, it was not flowing. And I said, this is our higher selves. This is God telling us we don't need to do a second take. And so we didn't pursue it. We didn't need. And so we both were like, okay, cool. Let's leave it as is. Where we ignore our intuition. Like there's so many times that I do ignore my intuition, and I'll use an example in a little bit because I want to hear your thoughts, but it's like, the more and more you tap into what your intuition is, little messages that lead you to your higher self. This is my opinion. The intuition are those nudges that like, it's your higher self being like, you could go this way. It's not going to tell you what to do, but it's going to be like, be mindful, think, like, just pay attention, go this way, feel free to go this way. It's just going to give you these little nudges and, train thought. Yeah, the intuition is guiding you to your highest form, your highest self. And we can be tapped into the higher self as much as we possibly want, but it's tapping into that frequency. It's consciously choosing to want to be in that frequency. But again, just going back to like us in the woods, that you'll know when you're in your higher self is when you feel so divinely connected, so like elated within you. And like, I felt it was so magical doing that. Like all those content videos that we did this weekend, it was like the higher self. We were our higher selves. And when you tap into that higher self frequency, you're on the path of highest alignment. And we all can be, and it's just consciously choosing. And again, with the intuitions, the more and more you tap into it, the less you ignore it, because you hear a message within you and you're like, okay, cool. Let me listen to that, because my intuition is telling me, it's like, it's saying, hey, do this before you forget, because they're fleeting thoughts.
Yeah. Let me ground it for a minute. I got to ground this a little bit because I love everything you said. But for people that A, have never heard of the higher self, or B, may know of intuition, but don't really understand like how it works. Like, I just want to like ground it all for a minute. Like, and explain, like, higher self, like, what could it be? Like, what is it? What could be a definition if you wanted to define it, which I think is really hard to do. You know what I mean? I think it's like a hard thing to define. But like, what I learned yesterday is that it comes from the dimension. It comes from a dimension. So we live in a 3D dimension. Like, we're in a third density dimension here on this planet. And there are dimensions below us and there are dimensions above us. And what I learned yesterday is that the higher self does operate on some sort of a time frame. It is not as infinite as the higher dimensions. So it comes in, yesterday I learned, around the 7th dimension. Like, that's where we start to tap into a time frame, a timeline. Now, it doesn't look like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. It's just maybe the timeline of your lifetime, or the timeline of all your lifetimes. Like, it's an expansive timeline, but it's a point in where consciousness can start to tell, like, I've done this experience before, I want a new experience. I've already learned this experience, I want a different experience. Like, it has that discernment. Like, so our higher self comes from like that dimension. And that is why we have to connect to it, because we're in this third dimension. We're grounded here in this reality. So we have to connect to it. We have to use our
Conscious
abilities
mind.
to transcend, and our conscious mind to connect to it. And the beautiful thing about it being in that seventh dimension, where it's constantly collecting consciousness, like it's literally collecting and it's not only collecting your experiences, like the higher self is like collecting so many different consciousnesses, experiences, to create a collective consciousness, to continue to expand the consciousness. And it's infinite. Like it can be anything that you're like meant to explore. And so one thing, like going back to what you said, Court, is like, you had said something that I wanted to like kind of bookmark, and now I can't remember exactly how you said it, but like as you tap into your higher self, you might start doing things that you've never thought you would do before. Like you might start.
It's very expansive. It's very expansive. It's expansive energy, because the energy, it knows no limitations. Like, because we put these constructs on ourselves, we put these beliefs that you can't do something. The higher self can literally, those dreaming big moments you have, that's that higher self being like, this is what we're capable of. Mm-hmm. We're capable of anything. So it's getting your mind out of the way. It's letting that expansive. If you feel big, if you feel expansive, that's your higher self being like, this is the route to go. And I'm getting chills as I say that. And that's like another little indicator. When you get little chills or you get little ringing in your ears, that's again, full body chills right now. That's the higher self being like, this is what it is. Yeah. This is the highest of frequency. You are as expansive as you possibly can.
Get the mind out of the way. Get the mind
exactly.
Like, you can heal your body. You can use energy to heal your body. Yes. You can use sound to heal your body.
You can pick up people's like thoughts. You can pick up the energy from other people. Like one of my friends, just a little side tangent. The intuition. Like anytime you think of a person, they're in your energetic field. And I say that because it happens all the time with me. And I love it when I see that. I'm like, okay, cool. This person's going to book in. And it always fucking happens. But like me and my friend, I'm like, we always talk about this. And one day she messaged me. She goes, oh my God, I was thinking about my teacher from 10 years ago who lives in Calgary. And she goes, guess what? She reached out to me. I was like, and it's like, that's the intuition speaking to you. Yeah. That's connected. We are connected. That's the energy. Like, the things that you can do with energy, with your mind, with your body, like you said, you can heal. There's so many different things. And it's getting your head out of the way, mm-hmm. and trusting and feeling and listening. And exploring, getting curious.
Yeah.
And guys, you can do this little tip. Like practice. Get a friend and be like, let's just start thinking about each other and let's see if we can start picking up telepathic. Like you can even do, like me and Mom play this game all the time. I'm like, and I do this with you now.
Yeah, I know.
And it's like, I'll just be like, okay, cool. What stone am I thinking of? And Bethany's really funny because
my mind is like really strong at first.
Well, I always find Bethany has this like childlike wonder. There's this excitedness. Like you have this real excitement. So every time I try to tap in on this game, she's always just like, I haven't even thought of the stone yet. And she's just throwing it. I'm like, Bethany, slow down. I was like, let's tap in. And then I literally, when I do that for her and she stops and she tunes in, every single time she gets it.
Yeah.
Because again, that's the intuition. That's the listening to your inner world of your higher consciousness.
Yeah, it's a cool game to play. Like I was going to bring that up in the realm of intuition. And like, in case anybody hasn't figured out, we're discussing higher self and intuition and the difference between the two, because mm-hmm. because sometimes I guess we were talking to my sister in an interview we did with her, and she said that, she gets guidance from her higher self, and she felt like, versus her intuition, and she can like discern. And I was like, wow, that's a really good thing to like hone in on and talk about, is like, what is the two?
Well, my theory is what I feel is the intuition is the nudging it's like the higher self. I still think that that they are connected.
Yeah.
I think that the intuition literally is just nudges, it like pings towards leading to your higher self. It's a guidance. It's a guiding point. That's where I truly feel about higher self versus intuition.
Now, do you think though that intuition can also be just like super like third dimensional, like I'm keeping you in tune with like what your surroundings are, like as in like, oh, we should probably go right instead of left. Like, or
Yeah,
like,
okay.
you know, like,
So,
or is
well,
it
for
like
the
some kind of external like guidance that's like keeping us safe in this 3D realm? That's just like sometimes that's its function is just on a really like third dimensional, like third, but like also like tapping
I would
into the
I
future. Like,
it's I think no,
yeah,
I think like I would say, okay, cool, yeah, I can get the third dimension, but I still it's coming from a higher
higher
consciousness.
place. Yeah.
So it's still like like it's still flowing. Like for example, I was at my parents' camper the other day, and we were in the car driving back to the camper, and I literally had my sunglasses on me, and I said, Courtney, put them in your purse because you're going to drop them. And I ignored it. And then sure enough, I go inside to the camper, and Dad goes, Court, you dropped your sunglasses. And I was like, you motherfucker, Courtney. So sometimes I listen to the intuition, sometimes I don't. So it's like when you hear that, those trains of thought, when you feel those feelings, when you get that gut feeling, like, oh, and I was actually talking to my energy healer yesterday, and she was like, trust your intuition. If somebody asks you, do you want to go for a drive? And you're like, you have a harsh no, you feel no, like, no. But then let's say you did get in the car and then you get in an accident, it could, that could be an avenue that by you ignoring your intuition, it could put you in a little bit of a problematic area. Mm-hmm. So the more and more you tap into your intuition, the more and more you trust yourself, the more and more you get led to your higher self.
I like that. So the connection between the two is there.
Yeah.
And so we kind of mentioned, like, I would like to just like talk about too. I got a little something. It's from my book. I just lost the page. It's from my book, Chakra Healing. Find it again. You'll find it.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so. So the intuition. So now feel free to stop me if it get I'm going to try and make it as clear and concise. So the intuition is the voice of our soul. The intuition is also this voice of the divine source self. Because again, like even in the video that she was saying, like it's the connection to like the higher self is the closest to God, closest to the higher power. So like that's where you want to go. If you want to be in the path of highest alignment, connecting to God, connecting to nature, connecting to those things, that's going to bring you to your that is your higher self. You're with it. So
and one thing I want to say just real quick about the intuition being the guidance for the soul. Is that what it said?
It's the divine source. It's the voice of the divine source self.
And the soul, something about the soul was said.
So it says the intuition is the voice of our soul.
Yeah.
So it's getting out of the mind, stop getting in the logic.
Which is really cool because the higher self, they like also refer to as like it's not your soul. Your soul is like in this incarnation where your higher self exists outside of the soul. It's the spirit. It's the spirit. Mm-hmm. It's the the higher power, the higher source, whatever you want to call it. So like, yeah, that's so cool. So thinking of the intuition as like in the seat of the soul, it's the connection
the guiding point. It's like it's a guiding point.
And the soul is connected to the higher self. It's just what the higher self is. The higher self is the soul. Yeah, the soul is an incarnation in this lifetime. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I like that. So then it says here, the intuition is the voice of the divine source self, the essential spirit self that speaks through our soul. Mm. So what you were just saying, intuition tells our soul what to do. In turn, our soul directs us to our purpose. So like For example, I'm always like, I allow my heart to lead the way. Sometimes the mind gets in the way. It does, this is part of the human experience. But it's like, I allow my heart to lead me, the soul. That's where the soul lives. Like, to me, I always tell clients, I'm like, if we follow our soul, if we follow our heart, we're following our path of highest alignment, because why would our soul lead us in the wrong direction? Thank you for tuning in to Collecting Consciousness.
We're so grateful that you've been on this journey with us so far.
And we look forward to seeing where we are going to expand, curate, and collect.
So if you haven't already liked, subscribed, or shared our content, and you feel called to do so, we would so deeply appreciate it. From our souls to your soul, and our hearts to your minds. We are collecting consciousness.
So that's where coming into trust and coming into surrender, like quitting that job. Like, I know people that have quit their 9-to-5 jobs to follow something that's truly lighting them up. That's the soul speaking to you. That's the intuition speaking to you, to be like, no, there's something bigger for us. And if you let your mind get out of the way, if you trust in yourself, in your soul, it's building connection to self, then you're going to be following the path of highest alignment. You're going to be following that higher self because you're listening to the soul. And then it says, so this just talks about how you recognize your intuition. And it's like, you could read books on the subject, take class after class, but still you must answer your own question. Because our divine source selves are unique. Our intuitive style is unique. So that's where, like, you mentioned you were clairvoyant in this thing, but you also pointed to your ear. That's clairaudient.
Oh, sorry, clairaudient.
Yeah. I wanted to distinguish that. So, like, there's different forms, like, and we could do another episode with this, like clairvoyancy, clairaudient, clairsentience, claircognizance. Clairvoyant is you see things, imagery. You could see like movie pictures. Clairaudient, you hear a message. It's like, hey, go to that wedding. Like just like a little thing, like messages that come through. Then the clairsentience is like, you just get feelings. You can just tell, like, oh, this feeling is what you're supposed to be doing. It's making you feel good about taking that job. You get a feeling, you're trusting. And then there's claircognizance, which I also think you're pretty strongly a claircognizance, and I am too. It's inner knowing. You don't know how you know it, you just know it. So those are just some forms of intuition. So really play around. And if you want to, like, connect to your higher self and say, show me the way I receive messages, and then pause and just allow the energy to present itself. And what I like to tell clients to do, I'm like, ask yourself questions you already know the answer to, and then get a feeling, and then just like stop, pay attention, and then you may hear like yes, you may hear no, you may get an image. So just like, because you already know the answer, so it's just getting you to build that connection.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that exercise.
Awesome. Yeah, and then let me just see if there's anything else I want to. So yeah, like the intuition comes in many different forms, just like what I said. Okay, I do like this thing. So talking into the chakra systems. So like it says each chakra will work empathetically or intuitively on its own way. The first chakra, for instance, will understand intuition through physical senses, because like that's the root chakra. It's your grounding, it's your foundation, it's your structure, it's the bottom of the physical realm. So that would make sense. And then if you go to the second one, also the second chakra, the sacral chakra, is all about your emotions. So this is where you can intuitively pick up the feelings. So if you wanted to learn more about the chakra system, like, there's so many videos on YouTube, but then applying the psychic abilities through that way.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. It's just like little guiding points. Like the intuition is a guiding force to lead you to your higher self, in my opinion.
So like real quick, just to connect, let's isolate the two. So if you wanted, or even put them together. So if you wanted to connect with your higher self and like build that connection more, what would be some things that you would suggest?
So like before we did our little video the other day, I literally was like, allow me to be with the higher self, allow me to tap into the higher self. And again, just setting that little intention, that little prayer is a connecting force. You're consciously connecting. Like when you can allow your conscious mind, like I'm not kidding. And we've talked about this, like rituals, intentions are my daily living. I will fucking anything. If I want to find a parking spot, I'm like, I call to my guides, I call to my higher self to find me the best parking spot. And then it always happens. Me and my energy healer always talk about this. It can be as simple as those little intention, those little prayers. And then when you truly feel that bliss, you're like, okay, cool. That's how you can distinguish that you're in that path of highest alignment. Because I felt so divine in that moment.
Yeah.
And it's like, so really, if you just want to start consciously awakening, put little notes. I'm a big fan of putting notes around your house because it taps you in. It gets you conscious. It gets you like out of the subconscious, just doing things on automatic, but like allowing yourself to consciously tap in to something bigger than you and I. You can do grounding techniques. So like before you start your day, you can literally just go outside and ground your feet into the earth and just get you grounded. Like you're tapping in to your higher self when you do that, because you're tapping into, and I'll say this again, you're tapping into something bigger than you and I. That's knowing that you are connected to source. We are already connected to source, but to heighten the frequency, to tap in even more consciously, become conscious of it, and then you're just gonna get playful with it. Again, like that book said, we're all different, we're all unique. There's a unique blueprint for how you receive that higher consciousness.
Yeah.
What would you think would be some good techniques?
Well, it's interesting you asked, because this morning I was walking in the woods with Moose, like I do every morning, and like because we had this episode come in, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna ohm. So I did a lot of ohms, just like also it was like super early in the morning, and so it was dawn kind of lighting, and I was like, the animals could be out right now, and we're like in the woods in Maine.
Yes.
So
Awareness.
I'm hoping at first to tell them, hey, we're here.
I'm here.
And like just like scatter, because I don't want Moose porcupine again. And so I was at first doing the ohm for that, and then the ohm just transpired into like me asking my higher self to be with us, and like held my prayer hands just to connect to like the center. Like that's a good mantra for like connection.
Can you show people, bring it up a little bit for people?
This prayer hands, you just press both hands into one another. It just balances both hemispheres of the brain, and it just connects. Yeah, it just allows for that and
I want to show my favorite one. Can you tell me what this one is again?
I always thought it was called Buddha Mudra. I always thought it was called Buddha Mudra, but I thought you might have found it called something else. But it's left palm in the right palm, just resting, palms facing up, and then the thumbs touching.
Honestly, guys, like for me, exactly. I'm like when I'm here, my hands are always like that. That's been one of my favorite ones you taught me. Yeah. It is so centering, and even in times like if I get triggered, if I feel my energy getting a little overwhelmed, I literally tap into that mudra, and it just centers me. It grounds me into my energy, and it brings me back. And then I can see, here you're just tapping into this belief, or there's a really loud sounds that are kind of like overwhelming you right now. So just tap in, and it centers. It was very centering.
Another good one is, I think this is called Lotus Mudra, but
I see you do that one.
This would be good for connecting to the higher self. So
that's what I was just thinking.
Spread all fingers open, and then just bring the pinkies to touch and the thumbs to touch. So if you're not watching, you can kind of follow along, but yeah, and you're just,
you feel it,
and you're just like, that is definitely an opening, centering kind of, but in more of an open, less grounded way. It's like definitely opening the channel.
Because you're tapping in, you're tapping in, and then get deeper with that. It's like, call in your intention, call in your prayer. Be like, I am here to connect to my higher self. When I do sessions with people and I take them on their journeys, because I bring them to their spirit realms all the time. I bring them to their higher self. Like I get them journeying to receive the messages that they need to hear. So I will always like start the session and like do blah, 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 blah. And then I'll be like, follow this intention if it feels right for you. I call to be with my higher self. Yeah. I call to be in the highest alignment. Like I'll choose different words and then I say different ones for whatever feels right for them. And then I tell them, find the verbiage that feels right for you. But it's literally like tapping in. What is this one called again?
I think it's called Lotus Mudra.
Lotus Mudra. And be like,
I am having the bottom palms, like it's like a funnel.
Open.
You want to have it open. Yeah.
Right.
As soon as possible. Yeah.
And like, for me, what feels good is like bringing the energy. Mm-hmm. Just bringing the arms up like this, like connect again. We're unique little beings. Like allow yourself just to play, get creative, get messy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was walking in the woods and I had my hands in prayer, like just connecting. And what was really cool is that from the Om, and I haven't really made this public, but and I haven't really talked about it a lot, but because I just also feel conflicted about the light language situation, but I felt called that my voice is that I do have a voice. Like I definitely do have a voice. And, I would say ever since I've heard somebody speak light language, I'm like, wow, it does have a resonance, whatever you want to call it, language from a higher source, that's transmuting a message or a feeling, more of a feeling. It's it does have a feeling. It has this energetic wave to it. But as I was doing that and I got done with my, I was just done oming and I was asking for, my higher self to be with me, to connect to my higher self, to collect, information from the higher self. I started this really crazy, just jibber jabber. It just sounds, I guess I'll just say it sounds like jibber jabber, but it was made up of these really crazy sounds.
Cool.
And I'll tell you the feeling I had after, which taps into all the levels of receiving the higher self. It's the feeling I had was a feeling of bliss. And so as soon as I stopped that little transmission, I just sat or just kept walking and I was woo, I felt like I just got a jolt of energy. I was totally blissed out, felt so elated. And I was wow, that was really cool. And it was very childlike, the energy that came through was very bubbly and childlike.
And that's you. I see that all the time. Yeah. I see that. Yeah. I see that energy in you all the time. So I just want to lean into that because I understand, okay, when things are trendy, I think that it just creates a resistance. And it came from somewhere, these languages, they are being channeled. There is this type of light, whatever you want to call it, light language. But it's I think in the sense when it becomes too buzzwordy, when it becomes too trendy, then boom, people are oh, I'm going to reject it all completely. But it came from somewhere. And it's as long as you're not really be honest with yourself, be integral with yourself. And it's are you doing this for show or are you doing this because it feels good and it feels right? And it's because I've heard I've heard someone say they didn't want to use a certain word because it was it's buzzwordy. I'm be grateful, have gratitude. Gratitude to me is not buzzword, I think I think it's okay. I think if there's a resistance, it's just maybe that fear, maybe there's a little bit of you don't want people to think you're being a fraud or you're being fake or you're just tapping into this. But it's nah, dude, if you're grateful for something, be fucking grateful. Yeah. If it feels like a language that's coming forward, fucking as long as you're just you're being
authentic.
Authentic. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. And that's where you got people we need to use our discernment of trusting, hearing the frequency, hearing the tone of what this person is doing. And are they, just being a keen observer and being oh, okay, I don't really resonate with this person, but hey, I resonate over here and they're doing the same thing. But, so I wonder if that maybe because it's trendy, because maybe there's a little resistance to it.
Yeah, and it's and I also am not trying to do it all the time. I'm just open to it because I think there is something there when I do hear people. And you're right, there's some people that I hear speak light language and I'm I really not feeling I don't feel that connection, but there's some that you listen to and you're
you feel it.
Wow, it is heart expansive, it calls to your soul.
I want to tap in one little pardon?
Yeah, being in
Were you,
nature.
yeah, that's what I wanted to tap into.
Yeah.
Like also, Bethany, like you doing the like yes, to let the animals know that you're around, but also tapping into nature, tapping into like the oming, like that's a
Yeah.
deep frequency.
Connection.
And that also those animals will feel that frequency, and then they will feel that this person is of no harm.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. That's a cool. Yeah, Moose did not like it at first. He wanted to attack me. He was like really wanting to attack me, and then he got used to it. But he was like, "What the what's that?"
It's like,
But
well, it's like when Anthony was doing something the other weekend, he was, I don't know if you were around, but he was doing something with his voice, and Moose was like,
yeah,
what the fuck is this?
yeah,
Moose was like, hey, I don't like this light language.
yeah, yeah.
He's like, get fucked, buddy.
Yeah, this is a freak. But he'll let you know that he doesn't dig it. But anyways, yeah, like nature, I think like nature is such a, if you feel comfortable in nature, some people
Yeah.
really don't feel comfortable in nature, but if you feel comfortable, I feel like that's a really expansive place to receive and to be connected. And I'd say anytime in like a meditative state, like just bring
Yes.
your nervous system down, like just on a really, basic but very important level. If you're like hyped up and you're up here and you're not like, in
Tune to listen.
yeah, in the lower, I don't want to say in the body, but like, yeah, like more in the body, less in the mind chatter, and
Yeah,
then
the awareness.
you're able to tap in and listen and be
Yeah.
and be a channel. And I think what you mentioned about like just really getting curious with what it feels like for you. Like maybe it's a feeling, maybe it's a sensation, maybe it's ringing in your ears. Like it's just really cool to like tune into.
Play.
It can look like so many things, and
then it can also tap into all of them.
Yeah, exactly. It may not be the same thing every time. It might be different all the time, but just being open to that. And then like, so that's higher self, like intuition, like trusting, building. I think with intuition, it's more like a building the trust muscle.
Yeah.
Like with it, like just being
trusting
like,
that gut.
Yeah. Like, okay, I trust that thought. I'm going to listen to it. I'm not going to push it away. Even if it seems absurd, like it's totally crazy, I'm going to follow it because something's telling me to do that, and I need to trust it. So it's definitely a trust muscle.
It takes time to build that trust too. Yeah,
it does.
And like I said before, it's like the more and more you do tap into it, the less you ignore it. When you have that like anytime I'm like, when I'm let's say getting ready for a trip, and it's like, oh, put this in your bag now. Sometimes I ignored it and then I forgot it. So now when I have those thoughts, I'm like, okay, it's telling you to get your passport now because you're going to forget it if you don't. So the more and more you tap into it, the less you ignore your intuition. When, you're going to go on a date with this person, but it just doesn't really feel right. Trust that. Trust that. Do you want to turn right instead of left, but left is faster? Trust that.
Yeah. And then like, and then at the end of the day, like, yeah, I mean, we do have that other thing like on this planet where we have free will, so we will always, it's an easy, and I'd say that's more of the energy that is endorsed as you're coming up in the world is like the energy of free will. Like I would say that that's more endorsed of like, you don't really hear a lot of parents telling their kids to trust their intuition and like do that thing. So you learn really young to like
not listen to yourself.
Quiet that thing. And so just, realize that like, we have been amplified in the arena of free will, and most of the time that's driving the ship, but like, start to listen to the intuition, the nudges that are coming your way, like, because they are connected to the
They're potent and they're happening all the time. Like I always am telling myself, I'm like, the intuition is always speaking to me. Always. Am I hearing it? Am I aware of it?
Yeah.
We're divinely led in. Like if you want to be tapped into that higher self, it's all around. It is all around. And like you said, that blissful feeling, pay attention to those blissful feelings, to that elation, that expansive energy, like that. When you're tapped in, when you're feeling it, you're in it. And we can be in it as much as we possibly want to be, the free will. Like, we can choose to be tuned in, we can choose to be tuned out, and the distractions all around. But when you like really get deep within yourself and want to be led and trusting that there's something bigger than you and I, well, that's where those limitations fall. That's where the surrendering happens. That's where the trusting happens. And the more and more we tap in, we're in the highest of alignment. Yeah. And it's a good place to be. Like, when, again, I'm going to refer back to us sitting on that log. That was really like, I'm now bottled that feeling up. I have that. It was very, very special.
What it felt like for me, I was going to say this back when you were mentioning the story, like, honestly, it almost felt like time just didn't exist. And it like literally just felt like we were in almost like like another world, or like just like not in its reality. Time didn't exist. I didn't even have to think of what flowed out of my mouth. It just flowed out. Like, there was no thought. And then the other really sweet thing was, like, I was playing this singing bowl it can be temperamental. It's not like a crystal bowl that you just like automatically can just get some sound out of. Like, it's a metal singing bowl. It can be temperamental. And I was playing that like effortlessly while talking.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
It was just wild. I was like, that was so like, everything melted away. It was so interesting.
I also wanted to tell you, and I forgot to tell you, and I thought about it last night, and now here it is. Your words came out so perfectly. You shined in your channeling moment.
No stuttering. Yeah, I was like, and there was no thought. Like, so it was really cool. It was almost like you just literally left your body in a way.
And 100%. And I even like, I was like, I only kind of spoke a little bit. It was so good. I was loving listening to you and letting it come. And it was just like, oh.
Yeah, it did. It felt like
from our hearts to our minds. I loved when you said that. I was like, weird. I was like, I never heard Biff say this. I was like, cool.
Well, that's kind of what it is, though. It's like, it's coming.
But no, that's channeling. That is yeah. And that's channeling. That is channeling. Yeah. Anybody can channel. We all can. It's just divinely tapping in. It's a fucking beautiful thing. Yeah. Side note, so it's interesting because like, the bells, my bells, your bowl came through the camera so perfectly. My grounding bowl, I have to ping it. It won't, when you go through it, the resonance is so deep or low, it doesn't pick up on the sound.
Oh, yeah. Because like, it doesn't, and it did pick it up perfectly.
Yeah. But I think those higher frequency, like that bowl is like a higher the one that I have is a very like grounding one. So I'm wondering if it's just that deep one that doesn't come through. It's those more high pitched ones.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, that's
but anyways, it was really beautiful. It was fun. So you could like after today's episode, set a little intention, set a little prayer for yourself to start listening to your intuition, to allow your intuition to come forward and for your higher self to present itself to you. Like, what would it be? What would it look like if you were living with your higher self? Give yourself a little opportunity to get curious and ask yourself, what does it feel like in my body? What can I see going forward for the future? She had also mentioned like the higher self is for the future. It's like it's your tapping into the future self. So like ask yourself to allow it to come forward and get curious, get playful, because we're all unique little beings.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Do we think that's like a...
with that note, that's the end of the higher self and intuition. Also, there's meditations. There's so many meditations on YouTube. Rasa is one of my favorites, or Jason Stevenson. Rasa is RASA. And they do all these like connection to your higher self. So you can do a meditation that will lead you to your higher self. And then there's the wisdom that comes from the higher self. So feel free to, if you want to try something different, give yourself a quiet moment and do a meditation to journey to your higher self and see what comes forward. And that's a way to get to know yourself.
Yeah.
With that note, we thank you, we thank you, we thank you. And until next time, we are collecting consciousness. Like, subscribe, and share. And reach out if you have a message for us and would like to be a guest on the podcast, because we are here to collect, to expand, and to grow.
Absolutely. Till next time. Thank you
Bye,
all for
guys.
listening.